Hello, I'm Rob Pugh and I'm a wedding and portrait photographer, but today we're going to be doing something on fashion for the Photographer Academy. We're here in their studio and I'm going to do a lighting setup that's kind of towards the fashion side of lighting. It's going to be a 4-light setup where we're going to use a beauty dish to light the front. We will have another light down the bottom just as a fill light with say a 20-degree grid on, some barn doors to sort of narrow it in. And then 2 lights on the back. We'll use red gels just to give sort of a bit of a different tone going on in the background, because we're going to use a black background. Our model today, she's going to be wearing a black dress. So without any separation lights, she would just disappear into the background. Fashion photography, the lighting on fashion photography, well, kind of everything goes with fashion photography lighting. If you was doing a portrait, then a normal portrait, your lighting's got to be spot on. Wedding photography, your lighting's always got to be right. But when it comes to fashion photography, just take a look around some of the windows of the clothing manufacturers out there, and you will see that the clothes are blasted with light and they're overexposed. And that's because anything goes. You can have lights that are overexposed on the face, on the clothes. You can be quite creative with the lighting when it comes to fashion lighting as well. So we'll see what we can do. There's going to be some bits that go wrong and there'll be some bits that go right. But I'm a big believer in you need to see the wrong bits to get to the right bit. So always have wrong images to get to that right scenario. And I don't know any photographer out there that will just walk into a studio, they'll just take one shot and that's it, it's the right shot. We always like to experiment. Well, we maybe have lights in different places and we want to move them around. And that's what we're going to do today. So 1 light at a time. We'll explain the scenario and why we're using that light, and then we'll move on from there. I am tethered up today, so the final images will be thrown up on the screen for you to see as I'm going along. My theory with the background, everyone always asks, you know, where do you put the model, how far away do you put her? Personally, I go for 6 feet, which is kind of 3 paces. I didn't put this down, but I paced it out and they put it pretty right. So if we was to go 1, 2, 3, so she's pretty much there. She's just going to be on the edge. So she'll just come into the middle there, just onto the edge. Now, if the paper came all the way out, a good little tip is get a bit of tape and just put it onto the floor. So that way, if you set all your lights up and you think, you know what, let's have a break, you go for a break, have a cuppa, you come back, the model might not know where she stood. She could stand in a different place. Your exposures have all changed then, all your lights setting up. So if you have something on the floor, just a little bit of tape, she knows where to come back to, then you can carry on as normal. So I think that's always a good point to put across. It saves a lot of time of having to re-meter everything, because let's face it, we only want to re-meter it once, because once we've done all that, then we can have fun and snap away and take some pictures. So let's do the first light. Now, we're using a beauty dish. This is a silver beauty dish, so it's going to give a crisp light. If you wanted a bit of a softer light, you would use a white beauty dish inside to give a bit of a softer light. So this is going to be a bit more crisper. And then inside, we've kind of got, if I can just pull this one out and show you. So we put these over the bulb, and when the light goes, it's going to hit this, bounce back, wrap around the beauty dish, and then come out. So we get away with a hot spot. A lot of people don't know how to use a beauty dish. They just position it anywhere, they fire off, and there's a right way and a wrong way, and the wrong way really does show on the lighting. So when you position it, the model shouldn't be able to see the bulb from behind this. And that's because this light, when it goes off, there's going to be no hot spots on the face. So you're aiming for this center to be lined up with the face, so you won't get any hot spots. The light wraps around her, and you can have a lovely glow of light. So that's how you know you're going wrong. If you've got a hot spot on the head, then the light's positioned wrong. So we'll just push that back in. That's there. I've got it on a boom. The reason I've got it on a boom, if it was on a stand in front, it'd have to go off to the side. I'm going to be working directly in front of the model, so it's easier to place it on a boom, and it's not going to be in the way. So let's see what we can do. And I'm going to move this around. And we're going to bring it up to about there. Okay. And we're going to bring this closer to roughly around there. Now, so what I've done is I've just lined this up so it's directly in front of her. And again, you can ask the model if she can see the bulb behind the centre, and she can't see anything. But again, not that I don't trust her, I will just go round. I stand behind, and that is perfectly in line with her. The light's wrapping around, I can see that. So I think I'm good to go with that light, and I can see a lovely glow on her face. We've got a really nice catch light going on her eyes. And looking at the catch lights, we've got it at, I would say it's roughly about 12 o'clock. So catch lights between 12 and 2 o'clock, that's kind of what you want to aim for. A really nice catch light between 12 and 2. So, light meter. Now, I don't know if you all know how to use light meters, so we'll just give a little demo of what to do. So we're looking at the screen here. We've got our shutter speed and we've got our ISO. And if we tap the screen, we can move the shutter. So our camera is at 2/50th of a second, so that's what we will set here. And our ISO, again, if we touch the screen, it will move it up and down. Well, we're in a studio, so we set it to our native ISO. With the Olympus cameras, our native ISO is 200. With a Nikon or a Canon, it could be ISO 100 that your native ISO is. So if you're trying out this shot in your own studio, just remember, put your camera to whatever the lowest ISO is. And that isn't, some cameras will say low under the 200, so you'll only put it to the 200 because the low is a simulation of 100. So check your manuals, make sure you set it to the correct position. And then it won't give us our aperture, because that's what we're going to trigger to find out our aperture. And our aperture goal is going to be f8. That's what we want to get the light to. So again, I'm just going to go into the settings here, make sure I'm firing on just the group 1, which I am. So that's good. And then I will go back to there. Another thing to mention, domes. A lot of people go domes out, domes in. My preference is the dome in, because I only want to read that light. I don't want to read anything else. Even though it's quite a dark environment, some photographers will put the dome out and they'll get everything coming in. It doesn't make too much of a difference when you're using studio lights. If you was measuring ambient light, the dome would definitely be out, but for studio, we want it quite direct of that light we're actually metering, so I'm going to leave it in. I haven't got a clue what that light's on, so we're just going to fire it off. There's a simple button on the side. We'll put it under the chin of the model and we'll just fire it, and that's on f11. Looking at the head, because it's the 1000, that is its lowest power. So we can't go any lower than that. So we've got two scenarios. We could move the light source further away, which we don't want to, and I'll explain the reason behind that, or we can go to f11 on our camera. So I'm just going to do that. We're going to leave it f11. I'm going to change from f8 to f11, which is a full stop. And I'll have to remember that for my lighting scenario, because my background lights are going to be a stop difference. And for everyone out there that doesn't know how to calculate stops, I'm going to show you actually a really easy way to do it. Even myself, I can't remember all the different stops all the time, and there's an app for everything nowadays. So we'll get out my iPhone, I'm going to show you a little app. It costs nothing to download, but it's a lifesaver in the studio when you're trying to work out ratios as well. It does it all for you, so it's a brilliant little thing. So that's going to stay at f11. I'll take the first shot so we can see where we go. Now with beauty dishes, kind of the rule of thumb is, whatever the size of the beauty dish is, that's the distance you really want to keep it from the face. You'll see a lot that they keep it quite high up and away, but the further the light source away from the model, the more power we've got to put in, the more punchy it's going to be. The closer the light source, the more softer the light's going to be. And you know, even though it's a fashion shoot, it's still going to be a headshot. So we want to keep it, you know, quite soft light onto it. So the distance there, yeah, that works for me. So let's do our first shot and let's see where we go from there. So the other scenario is white balance. I'm going to leave it on white balance for the first shot, and then after the first shot I'm going to put it on a custom white balance. My recommendation is always do a custom white balance. Now the built-in auto white balance with every camera is brilliant, you know, it gets it right pretty much all the time. But what I found with studio lighting, it's a little bit too cold. If you put your camera onto the dedicated lightning bolt, if you see the lightning bolt, then that's obviously for flash, then I find it's a little bit too warm. So I always do a custom white balance. And when you do your custom white balance, you should set it off this main light. So we'll go on to that. Let's do the first shot and let's see where we go from here. So I need to change to f11. So I'm at ISO 200. At 250th at f11, those are my settings. I've got my trigger turned on and I'm on group 1, so I'm only firing this light. So what side do you prefer being shot from? You got no preference? Cool, no problem. So then that's it, just turn your shoulder, that's it, just there. Bring this one a little bit further, just there. Perfect. And we are just going to go for a very simple. Okay, so we've got that first shot. Looking at it, we've got the white balance. The white balance is very sort of cold and it's took the white balance off the flash. And that's auto white balance. So I'm going to do a custom white balance and then we'll see what the difference is between the two. Now with the Olympus cameras, we can go into a custom white balance and we can save profiles for each flashes that we do. So I'm going to show you a simple setup on how it's done. There is a process to do it. So the first process we do, the lens has to go into manual. You can't have it in its auto focus. So we simply press OK and it brings up the super menu. We'll see the green cross there in the center. We press OK, it brings us into our focus. We go manual focus and press OK. So once we've done that, this button at the top brings down to menu 2, and then this wheel here is our white balance. So we're just going to come to, say, one that's free, we'll go to number 4. If we press info, now it's telling us to take a shot. So I'm going to use the Expo disc, which is a grey card, and I'm just going to aim this at the light source and take a shot. Then I simply press yes, and that's going to give us our custom white balance. So I always use lens hoods just for any flare that's going to come into it later on when we turn around the lights and we do sort of the background shots that are there. So again, with the Olympus cameras, using sort of the Expo disc there, it doesn't get it right 100% of the time because you're meant to use a white card and take the shot off there. So I always just like to do a little test shot, see where I'm going, have a look at that white balance, and then I always have one saved in the camera because I use my studio lights a lot. So you only need to do it once, save it as a profile. I know in my profile 1, it's 5400K, which I know that's what the lights are measured to in a Kelvin scale. So again, let's just take a quick shot there. We will go back into auto mode instead of manual focus for this one. Perfect. And you can tell by the skin tones there, so that's very, very white, and that there we've got some lovely skin tones coming on. So a big difference. I'm going to show you this because this is what you need to look at with your key light. On the chin, you can see the shadow there. So it's how far we want to take the shadow down. Is that okay? Do we want to leave it there? Do we want to fill the shadow in a little bit more? With a beauty dish to fill it in, if we angle it off and bring it down, then it'll give a much more flatter light, a much more flattering light to the scenario. Or we can have a much more contrasty light, leaving it where it is. So I'm just going to have a quick look around, and we can see how sharp it is with the eyes. So I've got a really crisp, sharp shot. We'll go with that. And I'm just going to do one more shot. Even though I'm working at F11, and the meter's right, but every photographer has his own sort of opinion on where the light should be and what it should be. So I always take one over and one under, and then I decide on where I want to keep it. So literally, one click, go to F10, I'm going to take one there, and I'm going to go one more click up. A little bit of a smile off you on this one, perfect, like that. Yeah, I'm going to stick with F11. It's giving me some quite nice shadows under the chin that I quite like, so we'll leave it there. Okay, so we've got our key light is actually set up there, and you'll probably hear it a lot of the times referred to as the key light, our main light source.